And then it came to us actually getting to Nepal, and we decided that we were going to do the Annapurna Circuit as well as doing Everest because for Malachi it was one of his main things which he'd wanted to do in Nepal. So we decided to do that, and then we added on the idea of doing Annapurna Base Camp as well because that's a separate mission. So those who don't know, it's not a part of the Annapurna Circuit. The Annapurna Circuit sort of goes around, and Base Camp just goes straight into the middle of the circle. And yeah, so we decided to do all three, to which we then found out afterwards that, Annapurna Base Camp had never been done on bike. So it was just an added bonus.
For good reason.
For good reason.
Welcome to Seek Travel Ride, where we share the stories and experiences of people taking amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello listeners, it's your host Bella Malloy here, and this week on Seek Travel Ride I've got an awesome episode coming up. Now, many people tell me the best thing about bike travel are the encounters with strangers that you inevitably get all along the road, and you'd have to say that's a pretty stark point for my two guests today. Indeed, they started their journey separately, and while their routes would see them heading in the same direction, from the UK to Australia, they didn't know each other at all before setting off. Then, in Turkey, they teamed up and a strong friendship bond began to form. They'd continue on together all the way through Central Asia until their routes once again saw them go their separate ways. But then, a few months ago, they again teamed up to take on some of the most challenging riding, or should I say hiker biking maybe, I've ever featured on the podcast. A unique Himalayan challenge taken on as a team of two. I'm super pumped to be welcoming back Jamie Hargreaves and Malachi Francis onto today's show, and I cannot wait to hear about their last few months of adventure on tour, the physical and mental challenge of taking on the Annapurna Trail, Annapurna Base Camp and Everest Base Camp with bikes in tow. Taking bikes to places they probably reasonably shouldn't belong to. And also, I want to know what's it like to once again team up with each other and share the journey together. Jamie and Malachi, a big warm welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us back on.
Great to be here.
Good to see you both. Sweating buckets in Laos at the moment. You're not in the high Himalayas anymore, are you guys?
No, it's a bit of a dramatic change. Yeah, it's a lot more humid down here and very, very hot.
Now, are you both from the north in England, or I mean, you're both English? Like, how are you dealing with the heat there?
I'm certainly much more of a cold weather person, so this is a bit of suffering for me. But
he's a northerner. I live down south, but I grew up in South Africa, so for me it's a little bit. I enjoy the heat. I like the heat more. Give me heat over the cold any day.
There you go. Well, live it up. You've got some hot weather ahead of you in Southeast Asia.
Oh yeah,
lads. I normally start my show out with the same question that I ask every guest, but I've had you both on. I've already asked it for you, so I've got a little bit of a spin on it. I actually want to know, and I want you to each tell me about your first day on this bike tour. Often the first days on a bike tour can be memorable for many different reasons, a lot of emotions, a lot of nerves, and I want you to both take me there. So Malachi, you hit us off first. Tell me about that first day on tour.
That first day on tour, well, it started off pretty well, a little bit hungover, but we had lovely weather. We got to cycle down the Downs Link, which is a local gravel trail by me, all the way down to Brighton, where me and my mate Ralph would eventually get the ferry. Pretty chill day, wasn't too much. A little bit of getting used to riding the bike and how heavy it was going to be, and a lot of thinking about what I'm actually doing. But yeah, no, it was a great day, one I'll always remember fondly. Yeah, one of the best days.
Setting off with your friend Ralph there, I guess you've got someone to sort of share the mental burden of what you're actually doing, but just that thought of a lot of thinking about what's ahead of you. Do you think you can recall when that actually really sunk in? Like, I'm assuming it's sunk in now, but did it feel overwhelming at the time?
Yeah, for sure. It really hit me when I was actually on the ferry and that ferry left the port. That's when it really hit me, and I was like, oh, okay, you're really doing this now. It was over the course, I think, of about a week, 2 weeks that you kind of really get the full realization of what you're actually doing. You set off with that, naive mindset of, oh, I'm going out to travel. But yeah, it only really hits you when things kind of go wrong, I guess. And you start to realize how big of this journey actually is.
Yeah, this show can often normalise this type of bike travel because that's all my guests are doing it. But I often think, what microcosm of the population are you? Are you like 0.1% maybe? It's a big, enormous thing that you've done to set off. What about you, Jamie? First day on tour. I've seen the photos in the square there with your dad and your mum and your brother. But you describe it for me. What was like first day on tour like for you?
In actual fact, that wasn't my first day. So that was my official start. My official starting point was the same place where Dad started from, which was the Machine Factory Square in Derbyshire. But my actual first day was going from home in Manchester down to Derbyshire, and that was about it. It wasn't that big. It was about a 50, 60-mile day maybe, and that was one of the worst days of the trip.
Considering what you've done, that's amazing. Why?
Simply because the day before, I decided to do my leaving do, which was a horrendous idea because it meant that my mates made it their effort to keep me in England the next day. So we ended up drinking from a ridiculous time in the morning till a ridiculous time the next morning. So
much like Malachi, you woke up with a messy head then, right?
Yeah, so I woke up with a messy head for sure. And
brothers of the soul.
Yeah.
It's called being British.
Yeah. And we didn't end up setting off until about 12. And I'd woken up relatively okay. I thought I was completely fine. But then I set off with my dad and my brother. So I said goodbye to all my friends. And then, we set off heading down towards Derbyshire. And I don't know if you know the road, the Cat and Fiddle. It's a pretty mega road to go up. It's a big climb. And we did that. It was hot. It was a very hot day, like hot for England anyway. And I was sweating. And for some reason, the hangover just seemed to hit as soon as we got to that. And I was suffering badly. So my brother and my dad were miles ahead. And I was just sweating at the back, trying to get it all out. We got down the other side into Derbyshire quite a bit. And then I literally, I passed out at one point. I just lay down next to a pond, waited for 10 minutes, and then we needed to get back on the road. So we got going, and my dad and my brother set off, and they sort of just zoomed into the distance, and I was just chugging behind. And then I felt so drained of energy. I pulled over some poor pedestrians in a car. I knocked on the window and I asked them if they had any food. So day one into the trip, and I was already begging for food from strangers.
Dirtbag into a new level.
Yeah, dirtbag into a new level, yeah. And this woman in the front, who's, God bless her, she was really kind. She went into the back of her car and pulled out a full picnic of things and just handed them to me. She was so nice, so lovely. Yeah, it gave me that little boost that I needed to finish the day. And in actual fact, they ended up finding my account a couple of months after. I think when I was in Croatia, they left a comment on one of my posts saying, I remember giving you food on your first day. And so I sent them a message. They're really nice people.
Oh, big shout out to you. You're legends. And, my mind boggles, Jamie, because how many sort of proverbial picnics have you been given by strangers ever since? I know when we caught up for the first episode, I think we were talking about this huge picnic you were treated to. I think it was in Afghanistan of all places. And, it was proper everything. Yeah, to think your first stranger picnic was handed to you a few hours in on day one of your journey. What a mega way to start. Riding by the hair of the dog with a messy head as well and hung over like a skunk. Both of you there. And listeners, I don't want to rehash what Malachi and Jamie have done so far. I've got 2 incredible episodes. I've linked them in the podcast show notes, so check them out and catch up on their story if you haven't already. But what I do want to do, I guess, is fill in the gap since we spoke. Malachi, when I spoke to you last, you were in India and you were nursing a pretty nasty knee injury at the time. And my mind kept thinking, that's such a heavy burden to go through. When your bike's broken, you can sort of logically think, well, I need to get this replacement part. But when something like your body's broken like that, it's not such an easy fix. How was that time in India for you?
Yes, I mean, look, when I got to India, the knee was it was a bit iffy, So obviously I was having issues all the way back in Uzbekistan already. But the knee, when I first got to India, was kind of holding in there. It was all right. And in fairness, I cycled around India for about a month and it was okay. It was only really when I got to Rishikesh did it start to flare up again. Hence why I ended up staying there for about 2 months. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, as you said, like with a bike, you can kind of just fix it, despite it even being difficult sometimes to find the right parts. Whereas a knee, it's your body, or, it's a different thing. So a lot in your mind, a lot of the time. As I always say, you just got to trust the process, and things will figure themselves out. And they kind of have. I'm here now.
You are, because I think what really struck me was, because when you were there in India for that first month, you weren't with Jamie, but you were with another few of the former crew, dare I say it.
Yeah.
And I think it was sort of, you'd all then decided that it was time to really set off again. The bikes were fully loaded, but you'd realised pretty quickly this wasn't going to be the journey that you could continue on with in that state. And they'd sort of left, and my mind was thinking, you're there now on your own. The crew's gone. You're really dealing with it on your own here. So I imagine that would have been a big mental burden.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was definitely hard to kind of deal with it on my own. But I think at the same time, those 2 months that I had there were two of the most incredible months. I was really able to just relax. And I got to know so many people there, local people from around India. And I feel like for me, I learned the most about India in those 2 months that I spent there, just interacting with the Indian people there, than I did even cycling it. It's hard. It was obviously a time I wish I didn't have to take off, but it was still a very positive time for me, and I tried my best to make the best of a bad situation, so to say.
Big silver lining for sure. And as you say, like often on a journey like this, you sort of get glimpses into a world, but you're constantly moving forward. So when you're forced to actually slow down and stop, it is the silver lining. You do get to get a little bit more of an insight, learn the culture, learn the place a bit, understand it a bit more as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Jamie, when I spoke and catch up with you, you were about to head to India from Pakistan. I think you had to pick your bike back up in Lahore. Pakistan was a bit of a rough journey for you in terms of police escorts and whatnot, which isn't the most pleasant experience for many a bike traveller. But you were headed to India. So had the plan always been sort of loosely formed that you would meet Malachi there? Or did Malachi's knee injury sort of really cement this in place?
Well, our sort of plan was to try and meet back up in Nepal if we could have, because originally Dragos was going to potentially rejoin with us in Nepal. So they were going to do some hiking maybe and wait for me there, but that plan sort of scuffed it a little bit. So, but no, the plan wasn't actually to meet Malachi again, because he was obviously cycling with Sam and Elliot and Ben. Yeah, so he was cycling with them and he was going to carry on with them, but then obviously his knee, sort of disintegrated. He ended up, obviously resting in India. And during that time, I just happened to catch up. I made a push to make sure that I got there in time.
Yeah, and then the dynamic duo forms again on the road.
Yeah.
An amazing mega part of India too. I know listeners, whenever I mention the country Nepal, the first thing that probably comes to mind for a lot of people are, huge mountains, a beautiful culture, beautiful smiling people, prayer flags maybe, those sort of things. But that part of India heading towards Nepal, I've only travelled there through the stories of my guests, but I've heard it is absolutely phenomenal region as well. What was it like heading towards Nepal through this part of India too?
Well, in actual fact, I didn't spend much time in the mountains. I went up briefly I entered from Amritsar, which is an incredible place. Any listeners out there who are going to that side, Amritsar is beautiful. Like the Golden Palace is incredible, and you can go and eat in the temple, and you can stay in the temple, which I did, which is really nice, for free. Like it's all free accommodation, free food, and everything. It's a really interesting, proper cultural experience. But then from there, I ended up going sort of along. Rishikesh is sort of just in the mountains. It's not deep.
Like the foothills.
Yeah, it's the foothills. Yeah. So I sort of cycled alongside the foothills, but I did end up going up into the north, and that was incredible. It was very beautiful. It was more sort of just jungle hills as opposed to the sort of Himalayan mountains. But I know that they are obviously up a bit further. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't go up that side. It's something which I'll have to come back and do one day.
The jungle area you're talking about, is that tiger region as well?
Yeah, they have. So towards the east of Rishikesh, there is the Jim Corbett Tiger Reserve, which is the most densely populated tiger area in India and potentially, I think, the world, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that one, but I know it's incredibly densely populated. So yeah, there's lots of tigers, leopards. Leopards is a lot more common. More the tigers tend to be in the reserve, whereas leopards are free roaming.
But we went a lot more into the tiger territory when we were going through the western side of Nepal. Yeah. That was basically all just tiger jungles. We ended up camping inside the tiger jungles for like 4 nights, which was slightly nerve-wracking.
I'm guessing you weren't cowboy camping then. You were definitely at least in your tent at that point.
Yeah. We were in tent.
You're not completely mad then.
No. Our sort of our setup was we'd find like a little clearing in the forest or something, and then we'd set up camp, 2 tents, fire in between, and then we'd wee around the campsite to mark our territory. I don't know if that actually works, but
I mean, cats do it, don't they? So
that's what I think about. I think it's just a bit of mental protection.
Yeah.
It seemed to work, obviously. Like, did you actually hear any wildlife of that type? Not the bird life, but
yeah, that did make us a little bit paranoid. Like when we were sitting around the campfire, you'd hear twigs snapping and stuff in the distance, and you just shoot up, turn the head torch on, do a quick scan, and then go back down and go back to talking. And we had the first night which we camped in the jungle. There was one point where we were just sat around the fire eating. I had a tin of baked beans which had carried from Kabul. I think Malachi had some ramen or something. And we heard some rustling come from the bushes. I turned my head torch on and looked up. And there was about 20 pairs of beady eyes, like big eyes, looking at us from the bush. Had no idea what they were. Still don't know. I'm guessing that they were jackals. They weren't prey. They were predators, but they were. I think they were jackals, which really they're kind of harmless. They won't attack you. But yeah, it was that was slightly unsettling. And then a lot of the other nights we had
just lots of stuff like that. And I think we ended up meeting 2 other French cyclists later on. They were telling us about how 2 days behind us in an area we had camped, a young girl was eaten. So, it is dangerous.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. So it's not something you should take lightly, I guess. It's not something I would have done if I wasn't with Jamie either.
Is it the sort of thing that, like, as a team of 2, it gives you confidence to do something?
Yeah.
Is it also almost like, is there an element, you got to be truthful with me here, is there an element where you don't want to be the person that admits and backs down from the challenge a little bit as well? Is there a bit of that going on?
Not we were really. Both pretty keen to get back out there and start camping, because I think both of us had not been out there for so long. And I mean, if you've cycled in India, as soon as you cross that border from India to Nepal, it's a different world. It's just so much more peaceful, and it's just a bit more spaced out. Like, it's a bit more quiet. So we were really looking forward to just kind of putting ourselves back out in nature and really just experiencing that to the full of its potential. So yeah, that comes with danger, but I think we both know that since you kind of leave, it's kind of dangerous. Like Europe's got bears, wolves, and turkeys, incredibly dangerous for wild camping as well. Georgia as well has got loads of wolves. So it's like, as soon as you leave, it's dangerous. There's always going to be stuff out there.
You're right. There's always going to be something that you could convince yourself is the worst thing. To be honest with you, when I think of the biggest danger in Europe and in other parts of the world, I actually think it's motor vehicles more than animals. When you're on a bike. I think that most vulnerable we are on a bike is when we don't have control of the vehicle that's behind us or coming in from the side.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are right there. Malachi, you mentioned something which I really want to pick up on, and that was that as soon as you cross the border over to Nepal, you're back in nature. There's this feeling of sparseness, maybe less populated as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that vivid, stark impression that you've just crossed into another country and another culture is about to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
What about culturally? Was that something that was really obvious when you crossed that border as well? Because I know with some countries you cross the frontier and yeah, it's a different country, but there's sort of a similarity there. What about Nepal and India? Were things culturally very different?
I think culturally, in terms of the religious side of things and kind of how they live their lives is fairly similar. But I think it's more the attitude to the way they live their lives and the way they interact with foreigners is very different to how they do in India. Yeah. So, in India, on a daily basis, I get 20 blokes pull up on their motorbikes next to me and tell me their life story and whatnot, try and take pictures. It just wasn't a thing in Nepal.
Oh, they were very intrigued. With it. Like they were very excited to see us and stuff, but they didn't.
They knew that out there we had boundaries, and they were very respectful of that, which was something that was a kind of a breath of fresh air after spending like 3 months in India. I love India to bits. I will always love India, but it's a challenging country to cycle in for sure. It's not easy.
Another aspect of it was when we were cycling through Western Nepal, like all the locals, they all wear traditional Nepalese attire, whereas like if you go, like the further east you go in Nepal, they don't seem to wear it. I don't know why that is. I think
it's still closer to India still. It's just Nepal is just so diverse again. For such a small country, how incredibly diverse it is, it's quite mind-blowing. Really quite mind-blowing. Because so the lower half of Nepal is very more Hindu, and then the higher you get and more further east you get that more Buddhist influence and that Tibetan influence. So it's kind of like this merging of these two cultures in this one country, and it's really beautiful to see. It's amazing.
Was there also this huge build-up of excitement ahead because you're really heading into adventure country now, right? Like, and I'm thinking mountain country, and I'm thinking mountains of the style that I personally have not seen in the flesh before. I love mountains. I live for mountains. I moved from my home in Australia to Europe in a place where I'm surrounded by them. But the Himalayas are somewhere on my bucket list. What was it like to be riding towards these big mountains?
A moment we had both dreamed about for so long. So quite surreal almost. Yeah.
Something we've kind of been waiting for since leaving England. Right?
I think, like when I first saw the Annapurna range when we were coming into Pokhara, I broke down,
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's like something that, especially after being in Rishikesh for 2 months, like not knowing whether I'm ever going to even go there. So, it was a very special experience, very surreal and amazing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Malachi, added with that tinge of layer of doubt about physically would you be able to get there? Because mentally you were there from day one of leaving. That's where you wanted to be. But just having this niggling doubt of, is my body going to let me get to this magic place? And what about you, Jamie? Because, I know you grew up in an adventure household. Your dad has done the journey that you're on now. Your mum's pretty adventurous and has been hiking through the Himalayas as well. What was it like to finally be there for yourself, not just through other people's stories?
Absolutely magical, incredible. I mean, I'd sort of been through that prior when I was going around on the motorbikes in northern Pakistan, but it's so vastly different. Like all the different areas of mountain range that you go to, each one is so unique in its own way. And like even the difference from the Annapurna range to like going up to Everest, so incredibly different. Like whether it's the culture of the people or the actual mountains themselves, the way the valleys are laid out, the way the rocks formed, everything. It's just so different, and it's amazing getting to explore it and see it all, and truly sort of experience the Himalayas for what they are.
I know that you both spent quite a bit of time there on this journey. Is it a place that you think, if luck and fortune allow for, that you'll return back to? Like, are you those sort of travellers first and foremost? Are you the sort of people that go back to places you've already been to before? Or are you the sort of people that love places and the nostalgia that's attached to them but always want to explore new places?
I think for me personally, it's a case of what I'm actually doing. So I wouldn't go back to a place to explore something which I've already explored, but I will go back for a different reason. So for me, for Nepal, like I'll definitely be going back to do some climbing. It's a climber's dream. So I'll 100% end up there again one day, but I don't know when that will be.
Yeah. What about yourself, Malachi?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I fell in love with Nepal. By far, one of my favorite countries. I've had the privilege of visiting here. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like, it's why I'm going to go back. I know I'll go back. I know I'll find myself back there over a couple more times throughout my life. When that is, I don't know yet. I feel like right now with Nepal, I've done what I needed to do there for a little bit. There's a lot more world to see. Maybe when I'm a little older, I'll come back there and refresh my memory on it.
Something that strikes me when people take these journeys on are the random things that occur that you couldn't have pre-planned to have experienced, but they happen on a day on tour. And one of them that occurred there for both of you was while you were, I'm pretty sure it was in Nepal. I actually don't know the name of the festival, but it was just like you were all doused in multicoloured paint. What was that festival, and what was that like to experience?
That was...
I'm glad I experienced it so I don't have to experience it again. That's how I like to tell people
It looked
about
mad.
it.
What was it called? What's the festival called?
Holy
Yeah.
Festival.
I've still got my T-shirt. I was wearing my T-shirt from it today.
Oh, hang on. That was obviously bought after the fact, Malachi, because it's not like hypercolour, multicolour.
Oh, no, that is it. I managed to get like most of the colour out of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's a couple like weird stains on there, but it's all right.
What about you, Jamie?
Yeah, it was certainly an experience to be had. You just walk down the streets and all the tourists seem to be targeted a lot more than any of the local Nepalese. They sort of see you and they go for you. So it's kind of funny walking around because you see all the other people around and they're just caked in multicolored powder. And at the end of the day, you sort of just go like a brown color. You don't end up multicolored anymore. It's interesting. And there's people like in the tops of the buildings throwing water balloons down and just pouring buckets of water. So you're sort of constantly looking up for fear of being sniped by some random local Nepalese kids out of a window.
It's like a different version of paintball, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it literally is. It's chaotic.
Hey, awesome listeners. Are you loving what you're hearing on Seek Travel Ride? Do you want to keep the good vibes rolling? Then head over to our Buy Me a Coffee page and show your support for the podcast. Just a little virtual caffeine love can keep me brewing up the content which you adore. Click the link in the show notes, buy me a virtual coffee, and let's keep this podcast party going. Thanks, legends. Now back to the episode.
It looked absolutely wild. Did either of you know this festival existed before heading to Nepal? Or that you'd get to experience it?
I've always known what the Colour Festival was. I thought it was I always known it from India. So obviously when you get to Nepal, it's a Hindu country technically. So they celebrate it just like they do in India. We didn't really know. We kind of we didn't really know. We were told about it in Pokhara and we're like, oh, that would be really cool to experience. So let's make sure we get to Kathmandu for that day.
So we did race for Kathmandu.
Yeah, we did really push it to get there for that festival. Look, it's a great experience. I'm very, very glad I had that experience. But yeah, it's different.
Yeah, you both looked very different at the end of it. It was hilarious just seeing all your faces, your beard, your hair, your mullet, Malachi.
Yeah.
Actually, your camera. I was joking with you last week saying, how are the stains on the camera going?
The camera, the stains are gone. The camera's kind of, not doing so well anymore. It's been through a lot.
It's got to hold on tight. Something that went through a lot was your phone. We're going to get to the Himalayan challenge soon, but I think it was like very early doors on the Himalayan challenge. It bounced out from your bike and then got crushed by a Nepalese truck, right?
Yeah, so day 2 cycling to Everest base camp. Yeah, it was some pretty rough roads. There was a massive, really, really tragic flooding there in that valley last year, I think it was. Devastating, completely destroyed the valley. It's really quite bad. So you were cycling basically on gravel roads, which are incredibly rocky. Like in Nepal, the gravel there is basically just chunks of rock. Yeah, so really chunky and just bounced out, didn't realize until I got like a couple meters down the road and then cycled back and it tragically been ridden over by a truck.
And there was no rescuing that back?
No, it was long gone. It was long gone, unfortunately. Just had to deal with that situation. Thankfully, I had Jamie there, though, at the time, because I was ready to go back. I was like, I'm over it now. I'm over this. But, you talked me in. I could call my mum as well, just to kind of level me out a bit. Yeah, it is what it is. It's fine. In hindsight, I think I enjoyed the side of not having my phone, I guess, because I was very in the moment and, it was hard. What we were doing there was definitely the most physically challenging thing I've ever done. So just focusing on the challenge itself and not having the whole other side of social media to worry about, I think was quite refreshing.
Something else that you pointed out there, and I'm sure it's happened the other way as well for you as well, Jamie, is just that camaraderie and friendship that you've got, the benefit of when you're at different ends of that emotional roller coaster of where, like you said, Malachi, it's all so hard, I just want to pack it in and go. you've got someone else there to help you get through that. And I imagine you've probably had moments of lower resilience compared to Malachi at times as well, Jamie, and you've sort of been able to help each other out through those.
Yeah, it's a completely different mission when you're doing it with someone else because you get to push yourself through harder things.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, you get to the end of a hard day, and whether you've both had like an incredibly hard day, whether it's just been a very physically intense day or something, at the end of the day, you're not alone. You've got someone who's shared the experience and you can laugh about it and have a fun time reminiscing. Yeah, it certainly helps having someone else.
Yeah.
Something else that I really loved visually seeing as I've watched this journey unfold out for both of you, the huge Nepalese suspension bridges.
Oh, yeah, they're crazy.
You've got an absolutely crazy video, Jamie, I think, with your Insta 360 camera there.
Oh, yeah.
Of flying across, well, not flying. Well,
It feels like you're flying.
It does feel like you're flying.
yeah, I know you both embrace adventure, so there's probably a part of your brain where like you're like, I'm having lots of great fun. But is there an element where you're going, what the hell am I doing? Like this is nuts.
Nah, so not gonna lie to me, that was just a bit of fun.
What about you, Malachi?
Probably other moments where I'm like, what the hell am I doing here right now?
Yeah.
The suspension bridges wasn't one of them. They are really fun, but there's definitely those moments where I'm like, shit, what am I doing here?
You especially have to watch out, and some of them they've got like missing planks and all sorts of stuff, so you have to like avoid them whilst you're going across, and obviously there's only like a foot in between you and the bridge.
They move as well. They're like
they
swaying like you're riding along them.
I mean, I've been on some as a hiker before, and there's always some, I'm going to say it, there's always some knobber who decides to get on there and be the person that rocks the bridge, you know.
Luckily, we didn't have any of them whilst we were going over.
Yeah.
It would have been an amusing sight to just be witnessing these two bikes just sort of going along this big expanse. Actually, to be fair, I think for me, what would feel a bit gnarlier would be some of the roads you're on. I think I'd very much prefer to be on them on a bike than in, one of the 4x4s or the buses that are navigating these absolutely nuts out roads as well.
Yeah. I mean, those tracks are immense, but yeah, they're about the width of a car. So it is certainly a bit less scary going on bicycle than it is in the 4x4s.
Your bicycle also, Jamie, I don't think it was too long after you'd left Kathmandu. It nearly had like a critical failure as well, didn't it? And you had a bit of equipment breakages to deal with.
I had numerous critical failures. On the Annapurna Circuit, the first one which we did, within, I think it was the second day, my rear block, my cassette sort of exploded. So basically, I think what had happened is the cog on the inside, like the ratchet that sort of snapped to it, had broken or something, and so it wasn't spinning. So I couldn't freewheel. So from that point onwards, for the whole rest of the Annapurna Circuit, I was basically riding a fixie bike. I had to be pedaling 24/7, otherwise my chain would just run through. In the end, I ended up resorting to, on downhills, just sort of letting my feet go and my pedals would just spin around insanely fast. And I'd have to try and catch them when I got to the bottom. But it was certainly quite dodgy. And then once we'd actually done Thoralang Pass and got down the other side and we were going down the valley, one of the cog rings had completely like snapped off, and that was just spinning. So that wouldn't do anything. And then we were traveling down the road, and somehow, I seriously have no idea how. I've never seen anything like it before. My rear derailleur got dragged through the chain system and basically just snapped it off. It like completely sheared it off. So it was...
the derailleur snapped in half.
Yeah, literally snapped in half. It was the most insane break I've seen. So I ended up having to hitchhike the last sort of day back.
They're the little side quest adventures that you don't necessarily want to have, but you've got to problem solve your way through on these type of places too. And it's not like you're having it in, Western Europe where, every other place might have a bike store. I mean, gosh, I always joke about it. Where I live in France, every huge supermarket has such an amazing spare parts bike aisle. Like you can buy a chain, you can buy a chain breaker, you can buy brake blocks, you can buy cables and gears and all that type of stuff. But you're dealing with this in remote regions in Nepal. So that's an element where what's logistically is it like when you do get yourself to a base of having to make do and having to get parts too? Like how does that all work out as well?
I mean, a lot of the time it's botched job you're fixing things with whatever you can, really. Like I think at one point I used like a zip tie. Sorry, not a zip tie. Like a zip, just a zip like tab, like off like clothes. Yeah, I basically used one of them as a washer because I didn't have a washer and I couldn't find one. So I just used that and threaded my screw through that, and just literally there's so many little things which I can't even remember. Like
his bike looks horrific. After we got it fixed from like Pokhara, and we had to do that stint to Kathmandu, his bike was like horrific.
Things were sort of falling apart. I put that bike through the absolute wars. That bike has held up to its, so it's certainly held its own. Certainly put it through a lot. When we were on the Everest base camp as well, I had a bit of a catastrophic failure in which I got pushed off a cliff by a donkey, and my bike ended up falling off the cliff, and I buckled my front wheel, so I had to ride the whole rest of that one with a buckled front wheel as well. I couldn't quite fix it. I tried tightening it as much as possible, but it wasn't going, so I think it was the actual rim itself had properly been damaged.
Not many people can have a sentence where they say, I was pushed off the side of the cliff by a donkey.
Yeah.
That's got to be a chapter title for your book, by the way.
Yeah, probably will be.
Yeah, I'm going to claim it. When I get my copy, you can sign that page for me.
Yeah. Will do.
We've sort of hinted about this Himalayan challenge, but we should just put it out there for the listeners. So the Himalayan challenge, I guess there's 3 elements to it, weren't there? Jamie, you describe it for us.
Okay, so the original idea was that, I'd always planned that I was going to do Everest base camp on bike to obviously recreate my dad's feat of going to Everest on bike, because he was one of the first people to ever do it. And that idea, obviously, Malachi, when we were talking in Turkey and stuff, I was talking about what my plans were and stuff, and he was really keen for that as well. So we were both going to do it. And then it came to Nepal, and we've been doing some sort of research, and there's not really any information online as to whether you can actually take bikes up there anymore. Yeah, all that side was really hard to find out about. So it came to the idea that I was going to try and do another mountain that's never been done before, potentially, and try and get to base camp, claim another title. Then I did some research and looking around, and I couldn't really find any mountains which were sort of accessible, which hadn't been done before. And then it came to us actually getting to Nepal, and we decided that we were going to do the Annapurna Circuit as well as doing Everest, because for Malachi, it was one of his main things which he'd wanted to do in Nepal. So we decided to do that, and then we added on the idea of doing Annapurna Base Camp as well, because that's a separate mission. So those who don't know, it's not a part of the Annapurna Circuit. The Annapurna Circuit sort of goes around, and Base Camp just goes straight into the middle of the circle. And so we decided to do all 3, to which we then found out afterwards that, Annapurna Base Camp had never been done on bike. So it was just an added bonus.
For good reason.
For good reason. Yeah.
I have interviewed a couple of guests who've done the Annapurna Circuit, and even then I know that it's not that you're riding a whole way by any measure. There are places where it's impossible to ride, but, there are stretches where you can cycle at least. Annapurna Base Camp didn't really look like that type of a place to me.
No, not at all. That was proper old-timer, rough stuff fellowship type of biking that. It was proper hiker biking, not much riding at all.
Which was harder, Annapurna Base Camp or Everest Base Camp?
They're kind of incomparable, to be honest. So Annapurna Base Camp was harder physically, but it was over a lot shorter period. That was only over 4 or 5 days, was it?
4 days, 5 days, getting
something
down
around there. But that is intensely physical, just carrying the bike and obviously a bag as well.
And then the snow.
The snow made it a lot more difficult.
Freezing too, wasn't it?
It was very cold. So that was certainly a mega challenge. And but then Everest obviously is a lot longer. We were gone for 3 weeks during the Everest expedition. It took 3 weeks to get up and back down again, which, that's... And that included a lot of carrying as well, and at a higher altitude.
Because, I was just thinking the elevation at Everest Base Camp would be higher than Annapurna Base Camp, obviously, as well.
But it had a lot more riding as well. It had a lot more riding. It was a lot more enjoyable to actually do from a biking sort of perspective.
It was very subjective here. Which one had the best views? Because I've heard, and I know that Annapurna Base Camp is would be different to Annapurna, like the hiking in the Annapurna, but I have been told by friends of mine that Annapurna Trail is actually a nicer, more scenic trail than, say, Everest Base Camp Trail. What about for you both? Which one?
Yeah, I think we both sort of agree.
Yeah,
we both agree that, the Annapurna region's just...
Yeah, the circuit, including the base camp, because you can do the circuit and then loop back around and do the base camp in one trek, which is what we originally intended on doing, obviously, but then Jamie's decided to snap. For me, I fell in love with the Annapurna region. I think it's breathtaking. It borders the Mustang region there. So when you come down from Thorongla Pass, you go into this crazy high Himalayan desert almost. It's like desolate. It's incredible. I think the diversity of the Annapurna region is far nicer to experience than the Everest one. But then I think with the Everest, you just see some of the most like insane mountains I've ever seen in my life. You know, I was just being blown away. It's all incredible.
It's not like going to Everest, you won't see incredible views.
Yeah.
There are no bad views.
No. I think the only thing that separated it for us was how touristy the Everest one was. I think after going and doing the Annapurna region, where it's a lot more remote, the tea house is a lot more relaxed. They're a lot kinder to you. Whereas as soon as you get to the Everest region there, it's just like,
it's a lot more built up.
It's a lot more built up. It's designed for tourists, and you know it's a little bit more expensive. Tea houses aren't necessarily as friendly, and it's a different experience for sure. I mean, I would always recommend someone do the Annapurna, do that region before you do the Everest one, so you just get a good idea of what it's actually like. Yeah.
I imagine that whole time in the high Himalayas, you both just felt like little ants in Mother Nature's massive playground, right?
Yeah, sure. It certainly makes you feel very, very small.
And you realize how big it actually is. We explored just with exploring tiny little valleys, and you know, there's hundreds of these valleys, and you really get a good perspective of just how vast this landscape actually is.
You know how you were hiking bikes there?
Yeah.
And I know, Jamie, like obviously you're reliving your dad's journey from just 40 odd years ago, retracing his route where possible, recreating images where possible. And my goodness, the image recreation photos from your time up there are mega. Listeners, I'll post them up on our Insta page. You can check them out, or check them out on Jamie's page as well. Were there times where you wish you were unhitched from that? I don't know whether I'd say burden, just because... like there is a physical burden of humping a bike up that type of a trail. Like part of it's the challenge, but was there much having to be played mentally, mind game wise to, oh my gosh, I've got to stick with this?
For me, there was never a doubt in my mind that I wouldn't do it. The only thing was whether I was going to be allowed to do it. That's for sure. I mean, I think I pride myself on my own mental ability to get things done. Like when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I make sure that I do it. It's a bit of a win, and doing something like this so extreme, it really puts yourself to the test. Yeah, from all aspects, from physical, mental, just everything is put to the test. But then I feel like the version of you that comes out of it after you've done like big challenges and put yourself through it, the version of you that comes out of it is just better all around.
I can tell you now, I always definitely wished I was free from the burden of Jamie's legacy he was following at a point.
I was going to ask that of you, Malachi. Yeah. Because there is the brutal reality. Like, there's the glory photos at the summit, right? But every day, every step, and the never-ending staircase to heaven/hell facing you up or down, like there is that physical burden. Jamie, what you were saying there, how the first thing I thought of, there's a sense of pride that you should have about that you do what you set out to do.
Mm.
There's a lot of people that dream up these goals but actually don't take the step to hold themselves accountable to doing them. So you have done that. I guess there was an element, and I think it was Everest, wasn't it, where you were nearly scuppered by bureaucracy, and it wasn't so much the physical burden but the bureaucratic red tape that nearly wasn't allowing you to get there?
Yeah. So that's one of the main problems we had on the entire expedition, which was a serious moment for us, because obviously it meant that we potentially weren't going to be able to complete the Himalayan challenge. And what actually happened is that online, there's basically no information anywhere about taking bikes up to Everest Base Camp because so little people have actually done it.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we ended up just sort of turning up to the is it the Schengen National Park?
Yeah.
Or the national park, like the Everest National Park, basically. We ended up turning up there with the same permissions and permits that like hikers have, because we didn't get told anything about the bikers permit or anything like that. And we kind of managed to blag our way through the first one because they asked us for a bike permit. And we basically just told them, oh yeah, at Kathmandu, they said that this permit was fine for us. So we managed to blag our way through there. And then when we'd sort of got up to Namche Bazaar, there was another checkpoint there and they wouldn't let us go at all without a permit. And they ended up calling the military. So the military came down from Namche Bazaar and basically collected us, took us up to Namche Bazaar, and then beyond it up to the military camp, where they basically just told us that, yeah, unless we get the permits, there's no chance that we can be let through. And then they basically took our bikes there and said, like, yeah, if you don't get the permits, then you can carry on by foot, but you can't carry on with your bikes. But then the next day, we had a day off in Namche to acclimatise. And we went back up to the military base, and the general had called the tourism office in Kathmandu, and he basically managed to get the permission to allow us to go through. So we got the slips in the end to let us go through. But that was certainly a sleepless night. I did every thought was running through my mind. I was very worried that we weren't going to be able to do it. I remember Malachi just I think I was a bit more sort of upset about it, because obviously like it's a very special thing for me to recreate Dad's feet. So I was sort of very upset about it. And Malachi was like calming me down, just saying like, yeah, no, I'm sure we're going to sort it. It'll be fine. And in the end, it did. We got to do it.
Simple, actually.
Yeah, it's actually a lot more simple.
We looked at each other and we were like, is this it? Is it really this going to be this easy that we've rocked up here and they've got us the permit? That's it. And
it's the way that they were talking to us the night before. It just seemed like it wasn't going to happen. And then the next day it just sort of happened. And yeah.
We were very lucky, basically. They were very kind to us and very understanding. And yeah, we were very lucky.
Something else that struck me that you were very lucky with was, well, it appeared the weather. Like the day that you were there, it looked pretty mega.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
I don't think we had any bad weather on.
No, not really.
Everest at all, really.
Everest we had very good weather. We got really lucky.
I think for the whole of Nepal we were very lucky with weather. Very, very lucky. Yeah. Like nothing bad at all.
I want to take a moment to talk about the recreation photos there, because listeners, again, if you haven't teed up with Jamie's journey, he's retracing the very route that his dad took 40 years ago. In fact, I've got 2 amazing episodes with his dad, Phill, that I'll link in the show notes as well. And settle in for those ones. Phil's a great storyteller, as you well know, Jamie. But the recreation photos from up there in the Himalayas and Everest, I don't know whether you have personal favourites, but wow, it really strikes me. What was it like in those moments? I know that it's something that is an emotional thing for you to be able to recreate those images, but what's it like when they're those sort of images that you're recreating? And do you have a favourite?
Yeah, I mean, I think those ones in particular were like my favourite that I've got of the entire trip, because we have photos in our kitchen back home. We have those exact photos printed on the wall. So I've seen them my entire life, every breakfast, lunch and dinner. It was a big thing for me to get to these points, find the exact spot and take these photos. But unfortunately, I mean, there's an unseen side, which like I haven't really talked about on social media, which is a lot of the photos I can't actually get because things have changed so dramatically. One of my favorite photos of Dad's is a photo of him riding down towards the Namche Bazaar in front of Ahmedabad, and we found the exact corner where that photo was taken, and it's the best photo. I think out of all of his photos, it's probably my favorite, and that's the one which I really want to recreate. But unfortunately, they basically built a Buddhist stupa on the corner directly, so I literally couldn't get that photo. It was impossible. We tried numerous different ways of trying to get it, but
specific stretch of day where there was like quite a lot of recreation shots and you just couldn't get them.
Yeah, there were like 3 that day which I couldn't get, which was very irritating. But I'm very glad I got the one on top of Kalapatar. So from Garak Shep, there's basically a mountain called Kalapatar, which most people do if they do the Everest trek, because it's an actual mountain peak. It goes up to about 5,600 meters, I think. And at the top there, at the very top, there was a rock which my dad sat on in front of Everest. And so I went up and managed to get that photo. That's probably my favorite, think of all the recreation shots I've taken, because it's so iconic. It's just sat down on a rock in front of Everest and Lhotse and Nuptse. It's so unbelievably beautiful. Yeah, I'm very glad I could do that one.
Yeah, for me, something that really struck me with that image, and I've got to say, when I think of the recreations you've done there in the Himalayas, that was the one that first came to mind, because it's so starkly in the same spot as well. The majority of your recreation photos are obviously in the same spot, and it's pretty obvious. And it's funny, like going through Europe, you can see subtle changes, like, you know, the tree that was 40 years younger is now a lot bigger, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, the thing that really struck me was how similar the ridge lines and the serrated shark's teeth of the outline of those high mountains, and, you know, the fact that the same rock's there, and notwithstanding the difference in glacial melt and rock falls and stuff, it was just so starkly similar. It really, really struck me. I feel like that's one that you're going to print out on a wall probably when you eventually get back home, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to try and print out all my photos, I think. Yeah. I mean, so like some of those photos were just so like dramatically different. You know, there was one which I got when we were on our return journey back down. It was after Gorak Shet on our way down. And there's a glacier that you sort of have to cross over. You don't actually see it though, because it's completely caked in rock. And I sort of looked back and I saw Malachi maybe 10, 15 meters behind me. And I sort of recognized the outline of the mountains. And then I got my phone up and I realized that it was the exact spot of one of the other photos which my dad had sent me previously, but he didn't actually think that I'd ever be able to find it because it was just in the middle of a glacier. And I found the exact spot, and basically it turns out that the glacier basically completely melted all the way down. So it's unrecognizable other than the mountainscape behind. So you can see that on my Instagram page. I think that's one of my favorite sort of changes in between photos. It's just so dramatic.
Such an unlikely recreation as well.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have expected that would have been one that you could recreate either. Malachi, did you ever get in and photobomb any of these recreations just for shits and giggles?
I'm in that one.
Yeah, he was in that one. He was the photo subject. Yeah.
Exactly. There's another 40-year tour happening in 40 years' time, and people are going to recreate. They're going to have to find another Malachi.
Yeah.
One of the joys that I've had recently on the pod is having the idea to get questions from people that are close to my guests and actually playing them for them. And I have actually done that for both of you for this episode. I've reached out to a couple of people and I want to play their questions to you and have you answer them on the pod. So first one is actually for you, Malachi.
Hi Malachi, Mum and Dad here. We are so proud of you and this incredible adventure you're on. It's been honest and bold and just completely you.
So the question we have is, what's a surprising discovery you have made about yourself on this journey?
Pretty deep from Mum and Dad there.
Yeah. I think it's my resilience, I guess, to the adversities you face in life in general. I think really grown a lot in, I think just the ability to be able to dig deep in certain situations where maybe most people would throw in the towel. I think I've really realized how strong I actually am physically and mentally as a person by doing this trip. Obviously, before I left, you kind of have this idea, but it's all kind of hearsay until you actually get out there and you do it. Again, even after doing the Everest thing, like easily the most physically challenging thing I've ever done and potentially will ever do for a very long time. Yeah, I think for me, that's the one thing I've really learned about myself is that, no matter what, if I believe enough that I can physically do it and I will do it. Yeah.
It's like the biggest gift you could give yourself, just that self-assuredness in that mental resilience. And, at the very start of the show, you were talking about what it felt like on day one and thinking of this overwhelming challenge ahead of you.
Mm.
I don't know whether Malachi, who left on day one, necessarily would have had the same level of resolve as Malachi that I'm speaking to now. Like, it's like you've watered that bit of seed in that plant and it's really flourished.
Yeah.
Before then, it sometimes you've got to go through those challenges as well. So, I can totally understand that would be something that you've learnt about yourself. Alrighty, Jamie, your turn here. Let's see who I've got for you. I had this come through as various failed attempts, so it was quite funny. So let's see if I get the right one up, right?
Okay.
Mum here. So my question for you is, if you had to lose one of those 3 trips you did in Nepal, one that you wouldn't do, which one would it be? I know that's a very difficult question and will make you think. So good luck. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Jamie's mum, Ali. And I must actually caveat that with saying that your mum actually did do Annapurna as well, didn't she? So that was something that was close to you from that perspective as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I was not expecting. Yeah, I was not expecting that question, to be honest. Because I mean, they're all 3 of them are incredibly important to me. Because Annapurna Circuit, my mum obviously did. She did when she was traveling around the pole, and so that was special. Like having done that after her, because I've seen her photos from that as well. And then Annapurna Base Camp was special to me because obviously it's a world first. It was a big challenge in itself. And Everest Base Camp is important to me because it's recreating Dad's journey. So they're all kind of equally important.
She's asking you to choose between the two.
Now I have to say, if I was going to do any again, it would be Annapurna Circuit. But that's the one which I would actually choose to lose, which sounds it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but that's the one which I'd choose to lose. In terms of the other 2 were more important to me. Like my whole mission is that I'm recreating my dad's journey, so I had to go to Everest Base Camp to recreate that. That was very special to me. But then also, Annapurna Base Camp. That's my first ever proper world first, so that's always going to have a special place in my heart. So neither of them I can really lose. But I mean, that's kind of that's a very hard question, and I wouldn't lightly choose any of them. To be honest, they're all incredible, and I don't regret any single one of them.
I want to flip that question to you, Malachi, because it is a good question. What would you choose?
So, I mean, obviously, it's a difficult one because the circuit was something that I had always intended to do as soon as I left. That was like, I've got to make it to Nepal to do that. It was something I dreamt about for a long time. And then, obviously, Everest was something me and Jamie had spoken about together for a very long time. So I was always very much hooked on that idea. And then Annapurna Base Camp was arguably one of my favorite ones I did. I had so much fun that trek. It was so nice to get back to what I originally started, which was hiking. That was just so incredible. It's a difficult one for sure. Say Annapurna Base Camp only because I wasn't on my bike then. But again, I couldn't choose really because they all so equally incredible and meant so much, I think, to both of us in different ways.
Thanks, Mum, for throwing us in the deep end there.
Look, you nearly made them sit on the fence, Ali. All right, one last question for you. I've actually got 2 I could pose, but I'm only going to pose one, and it's going to be this one. Here we go. This one's for you, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. I know, like you are a mountain lover and love the mountain environments. And on this trip, you've been lucky enough to pass through 4 of the major mountainous areas in the world. That's the Caucasus, the Hindu Kush, the Karakoram and the Himalayas. Which of those areas did you enjoy the most and why? And how did you get on in each of those different areas from a cultural sort of environmental and a sort of local people type of point?
Right, so you're getting me to write an essay in here. This is.
I know. I was thinking that as well, but just wrap it up.
I mean, I think for me, the most dramatic mountains that I saw of the entire trip were in the Karakoram. It was going on it, actually not on my bike, on the motorbikes, going around north of Gilgit and up the Kailash Valley and all up that side. That was just so incredible. Like even to learn about the different cultures in the valleys, because they're all like very separated. So they're not like normal sort of Pakistan. They're localized sort of people. They have their own dialects and they have their own religion. In fact, especially in Kailash Valley, they have their own entire way of life, and it's incredible. Like they have their own holidays and their own festivals, and it's only one small village of about 200 people. it's incredible. Like it's just so different, so unique as to anything that I've seen before. But then, I mean, all of the mountain ranges, have a special place in my heart. I think, I have to say, I think Karakoram was certainly my favourite. Yeah, but then also, Caucasus was incredible too. Going across from Georgia to Russia, like that, those valleys are just so astoundingly beautiful. They're incredible. Like, I mean, again, learning about the culture there. Like, if you go up to Mestia, the Svan Towers, they're like these huge towers, kind of like chimneys that just stick out the villages. They got hundreds of them, and they were there to basically to stop the invaders who came over from Russia. And they had like these doors which were really high up, and they'd climb up a ladder to get into the door to the tower, and then they'd just pull the ladder up, and then they couldn't be attacked. And just learning about the history of all these places is just so amazing and very, very special.
It would be, and it sort of strikes me that it takes going there to sort of learn it. Like, I know that we live in the most technologically advanced time, that we're aware of in our world, where we've got amazing things at our fingertips where we can ask questions and find answers almost instantaneously. But I feel like these are the sort of things you don't even know to ask the questions to get an answer to. Like, you don't know this stuff until you're there. And speaking of valleys with such isolated villages, how are you ever going to know about that they even exist, yet alone what culture they have within them? Yeah, just that sort of feeling of immersion in such a big landscape as well. Yeah, it really strikes me. Malachi, I don't think you went to the Karakoram, but if you were to, even think about the Caucasus and, the Himalayas and the regions that you went through there, like, again, they're two starkly different mountain ranges, but I'm guessing, like Jamie, they have very special places for you as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love the mountains as well. It's what, I feel at home in the mountains as well. I think one thing I love about the mountains and going to the mountains is seeing how different the cultures are from the norm of the country, I guess. Like, for example, going up into the Caucasus mountain range and seeing the culture up there compared to somewhere like in mainland Georgia is so different. And exactly the same in the Himalayas. It's just they're completely different people, almost completely different cultures, which I always, I thoroughly enjoy that as well.
It's going to be very, very weird when you're finding yourself based at sea level again, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Well, we're almost on now. We're almost back there.
You are.
Almost back there.
It feels like you're both now on a very different leg. Like, if I was to think of, your journey so far, you can sort of look at it as Europe, then you've got Central Asia, then you've got these mountain regions and the huge myriad of cultural immersion that comes with places like India or Pakistan, Jamie, or Nepal with the Himalayan challenge that you were there. But now Southeast Asia, it just feels like you've just started a new chapter. How does it feel for you? Like, does it feel like that?
Yeah. It definitely feels like it's a new chapter. I mean, over this side of the world, like the Southeast Asia sort of side, it seems, well, from what we've experienced so far, it's a lot more relaxed.
Yeah.
A lot more shops everywhere, it seems, and the roads are a bit better quality than what we've been dealing with for the past 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a trip of 3 sections. I like to think of it like that, right? I mean, if you exclude the cycling of Australia, it's about, it's Europe. It kind of combines with Turkey and Georgia and Russia, and then it's, Central Asia, kind of, well, it's even Poland, isn't it? Really? Central Asia, and then it's India and Nepal. But yeah, definitely a new leg now, and one I think I've been looking forward to for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, so far we're loving it though. I fall in love with Southeast Asia already, so.
I fall in love with the food that you have there. Maybe not the heat and humidity, but the food. Oh my gosh. To me, I've said this so many times, I'm a broken record. As an Aussie, Southeast Asian cuisine is really prolific. So it's something that I know a lot about. But what's it like to eat that aromatic, beautifully fresh cuisine?
Amazing. After you eat so much dal bhat for about 4 months, if you're familiar with the dish, this is a welcome change, shall we say? As well as also having predominantly almost vegetarian diets now for almost 6 months. It's as soon as you kind of get to India, it's very veggie orientated, and then the meat you do get isn't shall we say, it's not the most quality meat, and the butchering of it is not amazing. So for us, it's quite, difficult to stomach that sometimes. So, and as when you get here, it's just like, it's just an overload. There's just everything. Whatever you want, you've got it, which is amazing.
Is there a place in Southeast Asia that you are particularly looking forward to? Like, Jamie, I know you're doing your dad's recreation photos, but put them to one side. Is there a country or a specific area that you're aware of that you can't wait to see for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the area that we're in at the moment, we're currently travelling through northern Laos, and I've been wanting to come here for ages because it's one of the lesser sort of travelled Southeast Asian countries. Certainly going to be more interesting from an actual travelling perspective than going through like Thailand or Vietnam. But obviously, I'm excited for all of them as well. So yeah, this one has been on my mind for a while.
And the mountains here as well.
Yeah, the mountains are beautiful. I mean, as we were discussing before, it looks like Pandora from Avatar. It's incredible. You've got these massive limestone mountains that just push into the sky from flat land. It's truly beautiful.
It looks absolutely mega. And I mean, one of the best things about being a host of a show all about this type of travel is I've seen so many different images from people in different countries, but it is always something that strikes me is the vibrancy of the colours in that area as well. There's a lushness because of the heat and the humidity and the rainfall that happens there. And I don't know, there's just such a different vibrancy as well. Malachi, I'm guessing you're filling your cup, your photographer's cup is being energised there behind the lens as well, right?
Yeah, no, it's so stunning here. Like it's like a landscape again that I've not experienced. It's just so lush, as you said, so lush, so green, so vibrant. Yeah, it's just teeming with life as well. Really awesome to see.
I want to ask a question which sort of brings reality back, because there's definitely a lens perspective we could have on this type of travel where like every day is amazing and you're living the dream and new experiences every hour. There have to be moments where it doesn't feel like that on the inside. And I'd love to know, what is it about home and that type of routine that perhaps every now and then that you're missing?
Full English breakfast. I miss, I do occasionally from time to time miss food from back home, which is, it may be surprising to a lot of people considering English cuisine is supposed to be some of the worst in the world, but
it's a little bit grey.
I love a shepherd's pie. I love my Yorkshire puddings, and I love a full English breakfast. I love a Sunday roast, and of course, family and friends. That's the main thing.
I imagine family and friends, I feel like it goes without saying, so don't feel bad if that's not the first thing that comes to mind. Like family and friends, and to some degree, as cliche and corny as it sounds, they're always with you in a way. But yeah, what about you, Malachi?
I mean, I guess the only thing would be the stability of day-to-day life, of kind of having an idea. Yeah, the certainty of it. But like at the same time, if I sit there and I think long enough about that, I'm like, well, that's probably the reason I left anyway, was to leave that stability, to have a bit of question in my day-to-day life. So I think, there's moments where you miss the comforts of home as like a whole. But for me, I would never change. I would never change this for the world. And look, I love England, but it's not necessarily a place I plan on heading back to anytime soon. Hopefully to settle down, I like the choices I've made for my life currently now, and I'm very happy with them. I try not to think about that side of things too much.
No, don't feel guilty about it. Like, be in the moment, be in the now. Like you said, when your phone's smashed by a truck, it forced you to just be so much more mindful and present. So be happy that that's what you're doing now as well.
Yeah.
There's lots of routine and certainty ahead of you if that's the life that you want to choose. But I'm all on board with you guys both, choosing the adventure and choosing the unknown. Maybe I don't know. Is there as much dirtbagging in Southeast Asia, or from what I understand, sometimes accommodation is that cheap there that
I feel dirty.
You feel dirty? Yeah, that's the sweat. You feel salty probably.
And Laos been very dusty as well.
Yeah, it's been incredibly dusty.
Like the last 2 days we cycled, we were like horrifically dirty at the end of the day, just covered in mud and dust.
It's certainly a lot easier to just stay in hostels and the stuff over this side of the world. I mean, the one which we're currently staying in right now is only £2 a night.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more accommodating, easier and more fundable for us than staying in hotels and stuff in Europe. Like, that's just not feasible for us.
I take the time to ask people that you know to pose a question to you, but I want to I guess, to be fair, I've posed a lot of questions to you, but I want to pose something to you that maybe someone listening to this story of a similar age is thinking about doing something similar. What's the one little bit of advice you would give someone who's maybe umming and ahhing about, taking a sabbatical, taking some time out from that certainty and routine and putting their front wheel out there and pedaling forward into uncertainty that is bike travel? What would you tell them?
I'd say throw yourself in the deep end. There's one thing which I always sort of think about when we're traveling is that, like, when you're at home and you're working like a steady job and you've got a house, you're in a state of order there. Like, that at the end of the day, you're going home, you're going to have dinner, whatever. You've got like a bit of a schedule. You go into your job. You've got certain things which are the same every single day. You've got order to your life. Whereas when you're on the road, you're living in absolute chaos. I mean, you can choose the severity of that chaos by like dirtbagging or staying in hotels and stuff. But, at the end of the day, you don't know where you're going to end up. Yeah, you don't know what situations you're going to get into each day, and things go wrong. Things are going to go wrong. That is guaranteed. But you just sort of have to deal with it. You have to find out a way of solving the problems that come your way, and that's where you grow as a person. That's what really builds your character. So it's 100% worth it. Just throw yourself in the deep end.
Yeah, don't be complacent with the life you think you want, I guess.
Things always seem to find a way of working themselves out as well. One thing which I've learned on this trip, you have these disasters, like things go wrong all the time, but you can always figure out a way over it.
I mean, I never knew that you could use a zip as a washer to MacGyver a bodge of a bike repair, but there you go. Yeah. And I guess there is a need to just learn to just deal with it and learn to bodge things and learn to be a MacGyver and embrace the chaos that comes with that type of life as well.
Yeah, you certainly. You just figure stuff out, to be honest.
Learning to be uncomfortable. That's one thing we, as a society now, have kind of bred out of ourselves almost, especially in the West, is that being uncomfortable is a negative thing, and it's not always a negative thing. Yeah, you must go through struggle in order to succeed and feel happiness. And I'm a very strong believer of that. You've got to climb the hill to see the view, and that comes with challenge. Don't run away from the challenge. And I know that's difficult sometimes, and it's something I struggled with for a lot of my life as well. But yeah, you can't run away from it. You've got to face it head on. And then sometimes that's uncomfortable.
But I guess also, there's a case where we're telling people, I'll prepare for challenges and problems and stuff. There is a total massive flip side of this, which is energizing. And it's not about having to learn about how resilient you are and mental fortitude. It's just about the good things that are going to happen as well. And case in point, both of you in front of me now, you didn't know each other existed before this journey, and you've probably got one of the strongest friendships ever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Take to the road and see what lies ahead of you. But exactly. Yeah, there will be problems, but there's going to be lots of good stuff to fill your cup up as well, right?
Yeah.
Malachi and Jamie, time for me to wrap the show up. People, if you haven't discovered these two awesome travellers beforehand, best way to suss them out on the socials, I'll put links in the description, but quick shout out to your Instagram handles and stuff, guys.
Mine's j.a.hargreaves on Instagram, now TikTok apparently, and YouTube and Facebook.
Mine is Malachi_cycles on Instagram.
I feel like I'm such an older generation. I don't even think TikTok's something to shout out yet. So. Sorry, people.
Honestly, neither do I. I've only just joined it.
I will post links in the show notes. Give them both a follow. And something that has been great for me ever since, I think, first coming across your account, Jamie, gosh, it must nearly be a year ago now, was just watching the trip unfold. And as well with you, Malachi, just seeing you embrace the day-to-day different happenstance of challenge. You don't know what each day is going to bring, but I hope that one day you both sort of open Google Maps or look at a map, a paper map, and trace a finger from where you've gone to where you are and where you're going, and just you could just throw a pin on a map and then have a story about where that landed. Yeah. Oh, do you remember when we were there?
Yeah.
I'm sort of, Jamie, you're on your dad's legacy from 40 years ago. I sort of think both of you, 40 years' time, Malachi, Jamie, you'll meet up in a pub somewhere, have a pint, and then talk about the craziness, which was the never-ending staircase up the Annapurna base camp or something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I've already asked you my questions previously that I ask everyone, so I've got a little spin on it. And the never-ending stairs is actually a good point. So my first question is, you're given a choice one day. You can either hike a bike all day and you're going to be heading up all day, up the never-ending staircase to the Annapurna base camp. Or, alternatively, you get to go in the other direction and you got to hike a bike back down and you're heading downhill. Which one are you going to choose?
I would actually choose heading up. Going up is a lot easier on your knees.
It's going downhill. Yeah.
It's a lot more physically demanding, but it hurts. It's more painful going down.
You hurt your body a lot more. I think by the end of it, like the left side of my hip had like this massive bruise from just the tube just smashing into the side of me going down the hill. They both have their challenges.
They're both challenging. They're both grim.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Would you choose having to do either of those each day, or if you were given an option of just, riding for a day on the cruisy roads in Southeast Asia?
Take the roads right now. I take the roads right now.
You take the road. There we go. We are realistic. It's not all grim, right? It's not all self-flagellation on this tour.
No. I think that side of the tour, I'm hoping, is a little bit over now. So,
It certainly depends. Yeah, it depends what state of mind you're in, really.
Yeah.
And my final question, I've asked it with both of you before, and that's to tell me about the best thing about taking a bike adventure. But I actually want to point that a little bit more specifically, and I want you each to tell me the best thing that's happened for you both taking this specific bike adventure. What's been the best thing that's happened to you on this adventure?
I think for me personally, it's just seeing the hospitality of like the different nations around the world. People are actually so kind and friendly. You see on the news horrific stuff happening all the time, but in actual fact, when you get out there around the world, you see that it's not all doom and gloom. That like most people, 99% of people are incredibly friendly, and they'll put you up for the night. They'll give you free food. They'll stop by the side of the road to say hello. It's really surprised me, actually. Really surprised me.
What about you, Malachi?
I think it's the people I've met and the friends I've made along this trip. That is one thing that will always stand out for me. I've made friends on this trip who will be friends for the rest of my life. I will never forget, and I love unconditionally. So for me, that would be the biggest thing that I didn't know I was gonna necessarily have. I intended to do this basically after I left Ralph on my own all the way. So, and I've cycled with more people than I have. I've cycled with so many people now that it almost doesn't feel real sometimes. It's well over I think 20 people now almost that I've cycled with on this trip who are dear friends now. So I think that's the one thing that took me most by surprise on this trip so far.
It would be something that was totally unexpected, because it was originally you were going to ride with Ralph for a month or two or wherever, and then, it's not transpired that way.
No.
Which is the beauty of bike travel as well, is the unexpected and embracing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jamie and Malachi, it has been such an absolute trip and an absolute pleasure. I remember when I interviewed you both individually saying, I hope I can get a chance to interview you both at once. I'm going to be greedy and say, your adventure's not finished, so I totally still need to interview you at the end to fill in the gaps, because while the high mountains might be behind you, there's still lots of adventure, uncertainty, challenge, problems, and beautiful moments ahead of you on your way as you make it to Australia. May the wind be at your back, but maybe slightly challenging as well, because we want some good stories for the next session as well. Yeah. All is which to say, thank you, legends. Thank you both so much for sharing your stories and experiences here on the podcast at Seek Travel Ride.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's an absolute honour and privilege again.
Yeah.
There we go, listeners, an insight into the world of two great friends who have found friendship on their adventures and taken on some challenges that probably the majority of us would probably go, maybe not with a bike. I hope you really enjoyed the stories that Jamie and Malachi shared with us there. As I said, I have had the absolute bestest time being able to track their journey since I first got in touch with them, and seeing where they're up to now, and I encourage you to do the same. Make sure to check out our social media channels and see the visuals behind these stories, because often it is the case that as great as the pod is, often a picture definitely tells 1,000 words. And I'm looking forward to see where Jamie and Malachi get up to when I next catch up with them as well. Also, a little reminder that on our midweek episodes, I am actually featuring Jamie's older brother, Ollie, who has recently just set off on his own adventure as well. So if you want to track what it's like for somebody just setting out and how their journey has unfolded and what's going on there, make sure to check out our midweek episodes as well. If you're enjoying what I'm putting together here on the podcast, enjoying the content that I am producing for you week in, week out, and would like to give a little something back to the show, then do not hesitate. You can hit up my Buy Me a Coffee link, which is at buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me a virtual coffee, and most importantly, let me know. What is it that you love about the podcast, and where is your next bike adventure taking you? And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.